I'll write the full script now, based on the approved structure. Let me craft this with all the retention mechanics built in. Full script, the dead engine that could kill the EV race. Every satisfactory company in the world right now is doing the same thing. Bigger batteries, faster charging, more range. Tesla is doing it. BID is doing it. Volkswagen, Hyundai, every single one of them is running the same race in the same direction. But there is one company that just walked off the track entirely, and what they built in secret might make the entire race pointless. This is the story of how Mazda brought a dead engine back to life and turned it into something the EV industry never saw coming. Now, before I tell you what this engine actually does, you need to understand something about Mazda first, because this move only makes sense when you know who this company really is. Mazda did not start as a car company. It started in 1920 in Hiroshima, making cork and machine tools. Nobody expected them to build cars. Nobody expected them to survive World War II either. But they did, and the way they survived tells you everything about how they think, while every other Japanese automaker after the war played it safe. Copying what worked, building small economical cars, Mazda made a decision that everyone thought was reckless. They went all in on a technology that most of the industry had already given up on. The rotary engine. In the 1960s, when they launched the Cosmo Sport, the world saw something strange. A tiny company from Hiroshima had built an engine that worked completely differently from anything else on the road. No pistons moving up and down, just a rotor, spinning, generating power in a way that was smoother, lighter, and more compact than anything a traditional engine could offer. It became their identity, their signature, the thing that made Mazda, Mazda. But here is the part most people forget. That engine also had serious problems. It burned through fuel too fast. It overheated. It wore out quicker than conventional engines. And over time, those problems became too big to ignore. The world moved on. Other technologies took over. And the rotary engine slowly faded into history. Everyone assumed Mazda had moved on to. They had not. And this is where the story starts. To get uncomfortable for a lot of very big companies. See, over the last several years, while Tesla was building supercharger networks and BYD was scaling battery production to massive levels, Mazda's engineers were working on something quietly. No press conferences, no flashy reveals, just years of focused, obsessive work on the same engine the rest of the world had written off. What they did was not a simple upgrade. They did not just patch the old problems. They fundamentally rebuilt the rotary engine from the inside out, and every single weakness it used to have, they turned into a strength. The fuel waste problem, fixed. They added direct injection technology so precise that every drop of fuel is delivered exactly where it needs to burn. Nothing wasted. The old engine was like pouring water through a leaky pipe. The new one is like a surgical instrument. The overheating, gone. They redesigned the entire thermal management system. New cooling jackets, better airflow architecture. The engine stays cool even under heavy load. And because it stays cool, it lasts longer, dramatically longer. The friction and noise solved. They coated the internal moving parts with something called diamond-like carbon. It sounds like science fiction, but it is real. These coatings make the surfaces so smooth that the parts almost glide against each other. The result is an engine that runs quieter than any rotary engine ever built. Almost silent. And all of this fits in a package so small you could nearly hold it in your hands. But none of that is the real story. All of that is just the setup. Because what Mazda did next with this engine is the part that changes everything. And it is the part that should genuinely worry Tesla, BYD, and every company that bet its entire future on one single path. Here is the twist. This engine does not drive the wheels. Let that land for a second. Mazda rebuilt this rotary engine, made it more efficient, more durable, quieter, and smaller than ever before. And then they decided it would never touch the wheels. Instead, this engine sits inside the car and does one job. It generates electricity. That electricity flows into a battery, and then an electric motor drives the car. The driver feels pure electric acceleration, smooth, instant, silent, no vibration, no gear shifts, just power the moment you press the pedal. But here is the difference. When the battery gets low, you do not pull over and look for a charging station. You do not wait 45 minutes. You do not plan your entire road trip around charger locations. The rotary engine quietly wakes up, generates electricity, refills the battery, and shuts itself off. The driver barely even notices it happened. Mazda claims this system can push a car's range to somewhere between 800 and 1,000 kilometers. On a single tank of fuel, no charging stops, no anxiety, no compromise. Now, think about what that actually means for a second. The single biggest complaint people have about electric cars, the thing that stops millions of potential buyers every year, is range anxiety. Where do I charge? How long will it take? What if there is no station nearby? Companies have poured billions of dollars into solving this problem, billions into building charging networks, billions into making batteries bigger and heavier. Mazda looked at all of that and asked a completely different question. What if the car just charged itself? That one question is what makes this so dangerous for the rest of the industry. Because Mazda did not try to compete inside the existing game. It changed what game everyone is playing, and the effects are already starting to show in Europe, where governments have been pushing hard for full electric adoption. There is a quiet problem nobody likes to talk about. Charging infrastructure is still not ready. Not everywhere, not reliably, and people in rural areas, in smaller cities, they know this. So when a system like Mazda's appears, one that gives you the clean, smooth experience of an EV, but does not chain you to a charging network, it suddenly becomes very attractive. Industry analysts are already noting a shift in European buyer interest toward advanced hybrid systems. Mazda is positioned right at the center of that shift. In the United States, the picture is similar, but for different reasons. American drivers care about practicality. They want something that works without making life more complicated. And right now, owning a pure EV still requires planning. It requires adapting your life to the car instead of the car adapting to your life. Mazda's approach flips that. You drive it like an EV. It feels like an EV, but it fits into your life like a normal car. No changes required. Some estimates suggest that if Mazda scales this technology fast enough, its market share could jump from around 2% to 4% or even 5% within the next couple of years. That might sound small, but in the auto industry, doubling your share is seismic. But the most interesting market might be Asia, especially countries like India and Southeast Asian nations where charging infrastructure barely exists in most areas. In those markets, this technology is not just convenient. It is the only version of electric driving that actually works for most people right now. You get the benefits of electric without needing the infrastructure that does not exist yet. That is not a small advantage. That is a category-defining one. And the ripple effects go beyond just car buyers. Reports are surfacing that companies like BYD and Hyundai are now accelerating their own range extender hybrid programs. That tells you something important. When your competitors start copying your direction, it means you have changed the direction itself. Tesla is facing a different kind of pressure. For years, its supercharger network was its unfair advantage, the thing nobody else could easily replicate. But if the market starts moving toward cars that rarely need to charge at all, that advantage becomes less decisive, not worthless, but less powerful. And investors notice things like that. Mazda has also been clear about what comes next. This system is planned for their SUV lineup, models like the CX-60 and CX-90 within the next 2 to 3 years. And by 2030, the company wants its entire range to be multi-energy compatible, some pure hybrid, some plug-in, some electric with range extenders. They are not choosing one future. They are preparing for several. And from an environmental perspective, the argument is stronger than you might expect. This is not the old hybrid model, where you just had a small electric motor bolted onto a petrol engine as an afterthought. The thermal efficiency of this new system is significantly higher. Emissions are lower. And because the engine only runs when needed, and only at its most efficient speed, the environmental footprint shrinks considerably. Some researchers are calling it a practical bridge technology. A way to reduce emissions now without waiting for perfect infrastructure that might still be years away. Now here's the question that nobody in the industry is fully prepared to answer. Mazda is a company with roughly 2% of the global car market. It does not have Tesla's brand power or BYD's manufacturing scale. By every traditional measure, it should not be the company reshaping the conversation. And yet it is, Because what Mazda understood, and what the bigger players may have missed, is that the future does not always belong to whoever moves fastest. Sometimes it belongs to whoever thinks differently. Tesla built the future everyone imagined. Mazda might have built the future that actually works for most.